Thank you. Merci. Miigwech. We stand in traditional territory of the Algonquin peoples and accept their extraordinary generosity again with a thank you. In the language of the peoples whose territory I am deeply honored to represent here, of the Wasanich people, I raise my hands to all people in this place and say, Haishka Siam. It is with honor and gratitude that I address you. I am deeply grateful to the Prime Minister for taking this opportunity, for making a major statement of commitment to address historical and current wrongs that are reflected in the recent and deeply unsettling case of Colton Bushy's death and the absence of justice. I am very grateful to the Ministers of Indigenous Services, the Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations, and to our Minister of Justice. I don't think there's ever been a time in this country when broken promises set that aside. As individual human beings of deep integrity, I know these ministers mean what they say and will do everything possible to make it so. And I join with the honorable and astonishingly courageous member for Abitibi Bay, James Nunavik AU, in saying we will do anything together to make it so. I think this place, this house, which is deeply colonial, look around us, could anything look more like the vestiges of Queen Victoria? We are in a deeply colonial place, and we need to decolonialize, we need to indigenize, and doing that is something we will do better if we leave partisanship aside. We are members of Parliament dealing with the reality that we have 150 years of injustice, of deep and systemic racism, and that we have a history, which my honourable friend from Kamloops has referenced, of a system of separating children from their parents generation after generation for the purpose of breaking their spirit and denying the reality of who they are. We have a long way to go, and any one afternoon of speeches doesn't get us there. But it has been an afternoon of speeches, so I will be brief. I want to suggest one other, humbly, with deep respect to the member for Abitibi Bay, James Nunavik EU, because the idea that I, as a non-Indigenous person, should add anything to the list of principles we should adopt. I'd like to suggest that we also repudiate the doctrine of discovery. If we're going to decolonialize, we need to start there. To recognize the sovereignty of the nations, of the Indigenous peoples who were here first, we really need to find a way to roll back 150 years. And as the Prime Minister has said, truer words were never spoken. It won't be easy. I turn to the pages of the very important book for settler culture Canadians to read, Thomas King's The Inconvenient Indian. And he said, quote, "The fact is, the primary way that Ottawa and Washington deal with Native peoples is to ignore us. They know the court system favors the powerful and the wealthy and the influential," close quote. Now, when Thomas King was referring to that court system, he was referring to the long and protracted and financially exhausting process of pursuing treaty rights, of chasing fishing rights through the court, of chasing the right to say you can't log that place. But it applies to the court system as visited on the Bushy family. I think we have some very specific recommendations that I hope the Minister of Justice will consider, such as abolishing peremptory challenges in jury trials, as recommended recently by legal scholar Kent Roach. There are things we can do, and there are things we must do. But we also need to put out a message of love and embracing hope that says to those throughout, and as I know, Indigenous communities and First Nations, the voice of nonviolence and the plea for nonviolence permeates all calls for civil disobedience, permeates all calls for justice. Let you raise your voices higher. Let us ensure that we pray for mutual understanding, love, and deep consideration. My friend, the former president, and I'll close with these words, the former president of the Council of the Haida Nation, Miles Richardson, was asked, what does reconciliation mean? What does it look like when we've gotten there? And he said, reconciliation will be when you see me as I see myself, and I see you as you see yourself. In other words, it is the foundational principle of mutual respect, of human rights for each and every one of us, which means that in this country, with the history that we have and the present that we experience, we have a long way to go. And that road is made possible through the resilience, the courage, and the incredible leadership of Indigenous peoples, whom we hope to be deserving of their ongoing patience and consideration and friendship. Thank you.